Hello, good morning, everyone. Can I request JP sir to please come on the stage? JP sir, please come on the stage. No, please come, sir. So, okay, no problem. So, we will be now moving away from little bit of chemotherapy to radiation. There is some change in as far as this tumor board discussion is considered, because the three scenario which was been we are talking since yesterday are not valid for radiation. We can do whatever you want to do. Okay. Only thing is that I will be discussing two or if the time permits, the three cases. And these cases are specifically selected because these are the dicey one which we encounter in our daily routine practices. And what guidelines says, obviously we will see what data says, and more important, how you treat this patient in your daily clinical practice. Okay, so our first case would be head neck, our second case would be prostate, so which are very commonly we will see in our daily practice, and third case, if time permits, is CA lung with oligomets. Okay, so here's the case caption. Male with no comorbidities. Patient is a tobacco chewer, presented with ulcer over inner surface of right cheek since 2 months. On examination, ulceroproliferative growth involving right buccal mucosa, 3 by 2 centimeter. Upper and lower GBS were free. Distance from angle of mouth is 1 centimeter. It bleeds on touch. Skin is free. There are no palpable lymph nodes in neck. Relatively good dental hygiene. He underwent biopsy. Biopsy is suggestive of moderately differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. CCT was advised. It was suggestive of buccal mucosa growth, 3.2 into 2.5 centimeter with thickening. No lymphadenopathy. Other findings are same like clinical evaluation, like RMT, retromolar trigone was free, AOM was free, angle of mouth was free, skin not involved, bone was free. So it is a well circumscribed in damn mid buccal mucosa lesion. Patient is fit for surgery. Other metastatic workup in form of chest X-ray is normal. So what would we like to do? Any other imaging, tumor board A, apart from whatever is being done? Anything you advise before posting patient for any treatment, apart from whatever is already being done? Anyone can take a question.
I think there's adequate metastatic workup and local examination and everything has been done, so we can advise the patients further for.
We did only chest X-ray. So are you comfortable operating?
Yes. It is early stage disease, so chest X-ray is sufficient.
So this early stage clinically T2 lesion. So you are
confirm
with
CT also. Yeah.
Okay. Will you like to do HPV estimation in buccal mucosa malignancy?
No.
Why not?
There is no rate. Only mainly in oropharyngeal cancer it has shown there are it tailors the treatment. But for oral cavity cancer, it has
not. So you feel in buccal mucosa cancer, HPV doesn't make any treatment decision, correct?
No.
Like we in oropharynx, we know that HPV is better. Like we treat them and they do well. So you don't want to see the natural history of disease by doing HPV. It's just for discussion. I also don't do the HPV, but just for a discussion, I'm asking. Group 2, team 2, your opinion on that? P16 or whatever way of doing HPV estimation, will you do that?
Not routinely done, but and the likelihood that you will get the number is very low.
Yes.
So I think that's the reason that is not done. And I don't think we do it very commonly as well in our scenario also. But in histopathology, I think when they report it, they are doing it nowadays.
Yeah. In histopatho now they are mentioning. That's why I asked you. They are started mentioning P16. If you we do the ISC, they will mention P16. So next question: what is the treatment modality of choice? The early stage buccal mucosa lesion, localized disease. So anyone can. What will you prefer? Surgery, radiation?
Initially, I just wanted to add a few things. I mean, like. A nutritional evaluation will be of use in this particular case.
Yes.
Speech evaluation, nutritional evaluation, swallowing status, and those things.
So patient is fine. That's what I told you. Fit for surgery means like everything is okay. It's just a buccal mucosa lesion that is also not long-standing.
Treatment
early stage.
Yeah, treatment of choice will be. This is typical stage 2 disease.
Yes, it is clinically stage 2.
Clinical stage 2 disease, and the ideal treatment would be surgery.
So you are for surgery. Team 2, surgery. Team 3. Surgery. So, but in book, early stage, radiation is also a choice. We all know T1, T2, you can give the same cure rate. Why we are all the radiation oncologists? Why you are not, like, we are fighting for adjuvant treatment? Why not a radical treatment? You got a chance to treat a patient who is radically, you can cure the patient. So why not surgery?
I think if suppose it is medically inoperable because of certain things.
No, that's
or
okay.
if
That
suppose-
is the known, that is
and
the
if-
known indication for giving RT. I'm talking about early stage head neck malignancy. Book says radiation and surgery are equivalent. Then why, in spite of we all are radiation oncologists, not doing radiation?
I will give both the
Because-
options. Like I will give both the options to the patient, and I will consider if the patient is willing, I'll consider external beam followed by implant brachy,
Okay,
which will give a good result equivalent to surgery.
but you are for radiation, that means.
Yes, I'll discuss with the
So
patient.
out of 12 radiation oncologists sitting, one is going to give radiation, 11 will be referring it for surgery if this patient comes to you. Is there any direct evidence? Is there any direct correlation, direct study? Head to head comparison? Obviously, nobody will do nowadays. I know that. It is completely.
There is no head to head.
No, no, no.
Then do you want to do it if you get a chance to do such kind of study?
Unlikely doable. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been long debate. Even I will refer for surgery because of there is a retrospective database which is whatever is like being analyzed for a very long duration of time. The only problem is I'm not worried about the disease control. I'm worrying about the long-term toxicity. So we all know that radiation, head neck radiation is one of the probably the most morbid type of radiation, whatever technique you use as compared to any other side. Because we try to give that 70 gray, 74 gray for that matter for this gross disease. So there is not a direct evidence. Indirectly, obviously, surgery is the preferred treatment because of toxicity issue. And if you want to use RT, like Shivan sir, you want to give RT, will you pose this patient only IGRT, only VMAT, or 3D CRT is also you are comfortable by treating 70 gray? Radical setting.
You see, that's why I said, we are talking about toxicities. I'll give only 2/3 of my dose with external, and I would like to give brachy if the response is good.
So if you want to give brachy, the next question I will come back to you. If you want to give only brachy, then I will, the next slide we will discuss that. Just
not
park
only
your
brachy,
question.
EBRT plus boost brachy.
So how much EBRT and how much brachy you want
50
to
gray.
give?
I'll give up to 50 gray.
You will start with EBRT first?
Yes, 50
Okay.
gray. See the response, give 1 week break, and give brachy at least up to 20-21.
So 50 gray to primary, 50 gray to neck.
yes,
You will cover neck
yes,
also.
yes, 100%.
So T2, you will cover neck also and primary also, and after that you will boost brachy.
Correct.
And what will be your brachy boosting protocol?
At least- So we give 3.5 gray into 2 fraction at least for 3 days. So it's be around
LDR, HDR,
HDR. We have
HDR. So iridium 3 to 2, matlab 12, 10, 6 to
Yeah,
12 gray you will.
18
boost.
to 20 gray. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. If it would have been a tongue or floor of mouth, will you more keen towards giving radiation to this patient than buccal mucosa?
No.
Radical radiotherapy against surgery or still surgery? Quick review. Quick.
Tongue is also a worse disease. Always give it to surgeon first. Yeah.
Okay, so no problem. Valid option. We definitely refer it to surgery because of obviously clear-cut evidence. We get clear-cut pathological staging and everything. Obviously, this is we all know that. So this patient underwent surgery, transferal wide excision with primary closure with neck dissection. Intra post-op recovery was fine. No surprises. So are you happy with the surgery? Primary closure. So group 3, let's start from group 3. Primary closure is done, or do you feel that flap should have been done? Your trismus would be a problem, cosmesis would be a problem with primary closure. Any opinion of team 3? Do you feel surgery is enough or
Yeah, for this stage, it should be enough.
is enough? T2,
Yes.
okay. Grip 2, so it is enough. You are not worried about trismus, or you will force your surgeon to undergo. Why wouldn't you do a nasolabial flap, rotation flap? I'm not talking about free flap. You can do a rotation flap also. Na? You can do nasolabial also in this indication. So we will not do it because it is a long-term morbidity. We all are worried about trismus and cosmesis. So there is no surgeon, but just whether you push your surgeon to do flaps here, or you are just happy and let's start adjoint treatment. Anyone?
Bhushan, I think if transoral in expert hands, it's good, and let the primary healing takes place.
Correct.
But definitely there is a strictures. And
Yes.
as the tumor goes posteriorly, more likely that there will be a
Trismus,
trismus.
correct.
And there is more likely that your cut margins may be positive, So, but it needs to be very, very carefully done. And also it is important, a surgical colleague, what I see, that they always see the surrounding mucosa.
Okay.
Okay, then only they take a decision whether, I think there are a couple of great surgeons. I think the next one is Dr. De Cruz was
Yeah.
here. I'm not sure whether
So
he's there.
he is there. I think he's sitting in the last.
हाँ, मजा करो सर, कोने में बैठ के। बैक बेंचर बोलने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि पीछे बैठोगे आप।
So we were discussing T2 lesion, buccal mucosa, wide excision, primary closure is enough, or you will more keen towards doing a rotation flap like that?
Actually, I like the way you are evolving the discussion, and I was hoping the panelists were a little more forceful. I was just telling, we were just discussing at the back. So your question is good, but say if I did 100 T2 oral cavity cancers, 95 to 99 would require some form of reconstruction. There was a time when I was your age when we did primary closures, but there are problems, and I think you've highlighted them. Function and cosmesis. So we would always do a flap in the majority of our cases.
Yeah, that was the point I wanted to make. Rotation flaps are quite good in such indications, and we should push them. Neck dissection, T1 buccal mucosa. You will want to address neck even in radiation. Forget, like if surgeon address, we also need to address T1 buccal mucosa neck. T2, I'm not talking about T2. T1 buccal mucosa. Sir has a great paper published in NEJM.
I know that, but believe me, the number of buccal mucosa is very, very small.
Yes. So this was the paper, and the
And-
buccal mucosa 13%.
Uh,
So that's why whatever sir has.
T1 was again, the numbers are going to be real T1 are real small.
Yes.
I think Dr. Let the PI say
Sir
of
want to
that.
make one comment. De Cruz sir want to make one comment on buccal mucosa and neck dissection.
Yeah, point well made. JP is an integral part of the paper as well. We conceptualized it together and we did it together. Remember, in our country, buccal is a common cancer.
Yes.
Why did we only get 13% buccal? Because when you operate buccal, you normally raise a cheek flap. When you raise a cheek flap, you have to do the neck.
Correct.
Because buccal always requires reconstruction. If you're doing a free flap, you need to harvest the vessels. So you have to do the neck. That's why there's such a lopsided number of patients.
Correct.
Only bang mid-buccal cancers can be operated per orally. And the debate comes in those patients. And you can see by the lopsided figures that that does not pan out in clinical practice.
Yes. So our case was bang buccal mucosa, dip in mid bucket, dip in mid of the buccal mucosa, primary closure.
So should we do the neck?
Neck, correct.
That, it's a difficult question. As looking through this data, through my 30 years of practice, I would probably do the neck in all patients, except in an absolutely bang buccal, very, very superficial mucosal disease.
So fair enough. We will, the patient underwent.
And he is ready to come at your will and command. Am I right, Dr. De Cruz?
Observation, follow-up, strict follow-up advocating. Okay, so this patient underwent neck dissection also. Okay, and the tumor size was 3.8 into 2.1 and 0.8. Depth was 5 millimeter, modularly differentiated squamous cell carcinoma involving buccal mucosa, GBS free, all cut margins free. All cut margins are more than 1 centimeter, except the anterior one is 3 millimeter. On 20 nodes were negative. So this is what the histopathologist has given to you. So do you want something more to decide about your adjuvant treatment, or you are fair enough? No, I will observe this patient, I will treat this patient one by one.
Extranodal extension. Extranodal extension.
E&E is neck dissection, 0 nodes. There are no nodes. Nodes are negative.
LVSI, PNI.
So you feel LVSI, before LVSI, you cannot decide on whatever histopathology is given. There is a T2 lesion, chronic tobacco chewer patient, 5 millimeter depth. Don't you want to give radiation? Why you want to see the risk factors in the
To address the
histopathology?
neck partner.
Neck is 0.
To address the neck in post-operative setting, like adjuvant setting, we
Yeah.
can omit the neck radiation.
Okay, so for deciding whether to give RT to primary or neck, you want
Yes,
LVSI, correct?
LVSI, PNI, and worst pattern of invasion.
Correct.
Okay, oh, very good. So you want to give radiation to this patient. Let's suppose they are negative.
Yes, because margins are close now.
3 mm you feel close.
Yeah, it is close.
2 mm is okay. Glottic 1 mm is okay.
No, but for buccal mucosa, it should be 1 centimeter.
No,
Or more than
okay,
5.
I'll come to you. Team 2?
Yes, LVI, PNI.
No, forget, do you want to give radiation or not? She says she want to decide LVSI for treating neck. I'm talking about primary RT. Do you want to give RT to this patient?
Yes, elective dot.
Indication for RT.
T2N0.
T2 is not an indication for RT.
No, 3 mm means it's close margin, no?
Well, okay, close margin, we will discuss that. So you want to give RT?
So it is a borderline 3
Yes.
mm. There are papers
Yes.
which have like 2.2 millimeters. Beyond that is a safe margin. Some papers have 3 millimeters.
Yes.
So it's a borderline 3 millimeter we should give, and depth of invasion maybe 5 mm. So
Okay.
we should give.
So depth, yeah, everybody is talking about depth for treating primary tumor. Do you know it is an indication? What is the evidence that depth in buccal mucosa is the indication for giving post-op RT?
It is for,
In this case, I think depth is not really an indication because the accepted cutoff is around more than 9 millimeters. That
for
is
staging.
arbitrary.
That is for staging. But
Even
to
for-
label it as a T3, you have depth more than
Even
10.
if you go by Sir's paper, the indication that was for post-op RT was kept as if DOI more than 9 millimeters
Okay,
in the N0 trial paper.
okay.
If I'm not wrong,
No,
sir.
that study is not for giving adjuvant treatment. That study is for
No, sir.
doing neck dissection.
No. My point is which patients will receive post-op radiotherapy after upfront elective net resection. The indication for choosing was
Okay.
9 millimeters.
So we have a difference of opinion. By logic, you should not give, but everybody wants to give.
I would like to give, but the reason is different. My reason is the margin is close.
Okay.
Bhushan, I'm sorry to eat into the panelist time, but I have to make a comment. Because Indu and the others said that the margin is close.
Yes.
If you do a buccal cancer, the anterior margin is at the commissure.
Yes.
If you want 5 millimeters, you'll have to take out 2 millimeters of air outside.
Correct.
There's nothing anterior. So please don't look at reports and say 3 millimeter. RT is so precious for me in head and neck cancer. I don't like to waste such a precious bullet on such a simple thing like 3 millimeters. Please look at composite factors to discuss the biology. Make a mental note on the biology of the disease before you fire radiotherapy. You all guys really have to be kept in reserve. And the second point quickly I want to make on DOI. DOI changed staging based on one paper of Abrahami or that ICOR group.
yes.
But there's subsequently 3 publications, including one from our group, that depth is not an independent prognostic factor.
Yes,
And
that's what
a lot of leaders in the field, including Vermeuken and others, believe that depth came in very quickly into the staging and it needed more data to validate. I'll draw your attention to the same paper by Ibrahimi, depth as an independent prognostic factor, a paper by Justin Mann, looking that if you address the neck properly, depth is not an individual factor. And our paper, you can Google it, it's an EJSO 3-4 months back. And you'll find that don't only look at pure depth to give radiotherapy. Just 2 quick brief comments.
So we have a difference of, that's why I put this case and
I think what Dr. De Cruz was saying, right? So we need to go back and see and talk to our surgical colleague that if you have excised it well, and I don't see only the histopathology for the tumor, what is the specimen of excision? For me, that is also important. And go back and see the patient again, where would the possible of anterior margin would be?
okay.
Means if it is not at commissure, okay, is it a possibility of a re-excision?
Okay.
So there are many factors which will play in that. And I think our colleague was trying to say that we would like to see any more factors to make our decision concretely for the further treatment. Maybe a local treatment in terms of radiation or surgery or whatever it may be.
Okay, so do you look thickness? Because this patient has a thickness of 8 millimeter, depth of 5 centimeter. So the 5 millimeter, does it make any change in your decision? And what is the difference? Anyone, what is the difference between thickness and depth? Can someone highlight? Because it's very important. We all are talking about depth, but from where it is measured, what exactly it means, what exactly the thickness means. So anyone can take it.
Thickness consists of total size of the disease, and depth is which it is below the mucosa means.
So-
from the surface.
So what we're trying to say, this is the difference
Proliferative
between
part is not.
ulceroproliferative and ulceroinfiltrative growth.
Yeah.
So generally thickness is much more in ulceroproliferative growth because depth is only calculated from the basement membrane.
Basement.
It is got invaded into deep. So here in this picture, you can see the first one is UP growth, another one is ulceroinfiltrative growth. Sometimes you may get a thickness lesser than depth in ulceroinfiltrative growth. So that is one thing, but generally thickness is always more than depth. So thickness doesn't matter, as we say, depth is very important for us. So we all talked about this. We want to see LVSI, WPOI, infiltrate soft tissue. Very loose comment. Sometimes we get that it is infiltrating soft tissue. What does this infiltrating soft tissue means in buccal mucosa? Which soft tissue got infiltrated? Whether it is muscle infiltrated, buccal fat is infiltrated, because we have a tendency to highlight infiltrating soft tissue, indication for RT. Depth more than 5, indication for RT. So what does this really soft tissue invasion means? And does it translate into staging workup? Even a pathological doesn't mention soft tissue invasion. Pathological staging only mentions if it is bone involved, skin involved, or sinus or maxillary sinus is involved. So why we are talking so much about soft tissue infiltration, and we try to look in histopathology report whether there is a soft tissue infiltration or not. And what exactly this LVSI and PNI means? PNI is also called as neotropism, and LVSI, there are 4 groups of LVSI, and all like any other indication, LVSI has come up a great way because that is an indication for adjuvant treatment. So for this particular case, we are T2N0M0. This we discussed. So we will give radiation. For this patient doesn't have LVSI, no WPOI, no PNI. So just one word, quick comment, RT or no RT? No RT? Depth 5 millimeter, chronic tobacco sugar, T2 lesion.
Actually, we still don't know the margin status.
Margin
Which
3 mm.
margin
3
is
mm
closed.
Because of anterior commission, as sir said,
So
and it is enough.
if it is
for
like that, then no RT.
3 mm, no RT. Anyone for RT?
Bhushan, I just want to ask Sir JP sir actually, because of experience. Suppose the around mucosa is having leukoplakia, precursor lesions, and poor compliance of the patient for follow-up. Will you go for over treatment?
No, certainly no. So basically, for me, everybody was asking for more information, and it's good to ask for more information and pass it on to the patient for their good local control. But and don't land up in under treatment. Maybe if we are in doubt, I think I have always myself considered, let's over treat it. Okay, I understand there is so at times myself and Dr. De Cruz used to have debates also in that same joint clinic. But adjacent areas needs to be very carefully evaluated for the second primary or the other buccal mucosa which is going to come in some point of time. And nowadays with good NBI, etc., you can always see whether it is, and if in doubt, excise it. Again,
Bhushan,
re-excise it.
one last practical. I'm sorry to keep coming up, but you brought some.
No, we
very-
want you to come back.
very,
We want
very
debate to
interesting
happen
point.
actually.
You know, I would give this patient RT.
Yes, even I would do.
I'll
RT
tell you
for this
why.
patient.
You will wonder why I'm saying this after my previous comments. If you have done a 5 millimeter thick buccal mucosa cancer, you cannot get a base more than 5 millimeters and close primarily. You just cannot get a base. And I challenge any surgeon in the audience to contest what I'm saying. So I would really go back, see the specimen, talk to the surgeon. If you go 5 millimeters thick tumor, you go another 5 millimeters on the base, you'll be beyond subacute tissue. You can't close this primarily.
Even
So there's a little dichotomy in the presentation, but it's okay. It's a point that I want you all to consider. So look at composite factors, understand the biology. They say when you start talking like this, they say he's over the hill, Buddha ho gaya. But anyway, that's what you have to.
So important thing is to just see the specimen. to see the specimen. So that is the basic thing. And go back and again see your patient. If you think the chick has dumpled, etc., so is the surgery good and adequate? So those things are important to see before to say no RT.
Okay. So because time is not permitting, we'll go to second quest quickly. It is a 65-year-old male, mild hypertensive, controlled on single AST, no other comorbidity, good life expectancy, presented with urinary frequency, urgency, and nocturia. USG is suggestive of prostatomegaly with prostate size of 48 gram. Post-void urine is 100 ml. PR examination was carried out. It shows hard prostate with disease extending beyond prostate, but clinically without fixation to adjacent structure. Means rectum and these were free. Biopsy suggestive of Gleason score 8, that is 4+4 in multiple core. So 6 taken biopsies, so there were more than 8 cores positive, and biopsy grade group is 4. We'll come to this grade group 4 at later slide. More than 30% of cores were involved in biopsy. PSA was 21.89. PSMA scan was done showing uptake in prostate with minimal unilateral extraprostatic spread. Extraprostatic spread is also called as extracapsular spread. No distant metastasis. MRI prostate was done, confirms the finding, and it is clinico-radiologically looks like T3A lesion. I am not going to discuss whether you are offering a neoadjuvant hormonal treatment followed by RT. Obviously, patient landed up with the urologist, and they feel that T3A they can operate because it is a high-risk patient. Patient has obstructive symptoms, valid enough. These are all valid indication. Patient is obstructing. There is a post-void urine. T31 clinico-radiologically doesn't look like to be seminal vesicle involved. Landed up, PSA is higher, that is high risk, but underwent a radical prostatectomy and extended lymph nodal dissection. Clinically, it is T3A lesion. Patient underwent RP and lymph nodal dissection. HPR suggested of Gleason 8, extraprostatic, that is extracapsular spread is present, seminal vesicle is involved. So now it is T3B, microscopic involvement. 1 centimeter, 1 cut margin is positive, and that cut margin is non-apical 1, and 0 out of 10 lymph nodes were positive. So does this cut margin is like criteria for your selecting a adjuvant treatment? That is first question. And whether apical versus non-apical versus lateral makes a difference in your treatment decision. One by one. Let's start with group 3. They are like team 3. Whether 1 cut margin positive, you want to give adjuvant RT? We all know that cut margin positive indication for RT. But is it in prostate, is it true?
I would observe this patient with a serial PSA estimates rather than directly jumping into adjuvant RT for this patient. With whatever latest 2 or 3 trials which are randomized and which are showing that rather than giving adjuvant RT, it is better to observe and take the patient when we have increase in the levels of PSA and give him salvage radiotherapy.
So basically, you are for salvage RT, no adjuvant RT. This group, salvage RT, adjuvant RT.
What's the post-op PSA?
Okay, I will come to that. Post-op PSA is 0.3 nanogram per ml. There is more confusion added to you. So whether you will give post-op RT or salvage RT?
Still salvage.
Still salvage. We'll come to data later. Post-op RT, salvage RT.
I would like to consider adjuvant RT.
Okay, so we have 2 salvage RT, 1 adjuvant RT. Okay.
Based upon margin based on NCCN, what it says, margin positive.
Well, let's forget about guidelines. We'll come to guidelines later. What we'll do in your practice?
I would like to give once the patient has recovered from the operative side effects and repeat post-op PSA if they consider that is immediate post-op.
Yeah, it is post-op 1 month. Patient doesn't have, except apart from little bit of dribbling of urine, patient is perfectly fine, tolerated very well.
At 3 months, I would like to, in my routine practice, post-op 3 months, I would like
After
to
2 months, 0.3. After 3 months, 0.3 PSA.
would like to consider adjuvant RT.
You adjuvant RT, salvage RT. Will you call it as a adjuvant RT or salvage RT? When you will call it as a salvage RT, when we will call it as a adjuvant RT?
I would like to call it adjuvant at 3 months.
Why? because it is salvage. It is not, radical prostatectomy is not enough. There is a residual prostate left. That's why PSA is not undetectable, and the border cutoff level is 0.02 or undetectable. The PSA should be undetectable after prostatectomy.
Correct. That's
This would be adjuvant. If we offer it now at 0.3, it would be adjuvant RT because
Yeah,
it's not less
yes,
than
so that is a
0.2.
residual. So that's
Yeah.
what point I wanted to make. So just for other audience, adjuvant RT means you give RT just after completion of prostatectomy. Don't wait for PSA to rise. Once you treat patient with rising PSA, then it is called as salvage RT because you are salvaging a situation. So this patient, we have difference of opinion. One will do adjuvant, two are going for salvage RT. The staging would be P3B, PN0, and you should mention R1. If even a single cut margin positive, there is a pathological staging new, you should mention R1 in that. So we are T3, and this is a grade grouping which we are talking. So we are in grade group 4, which is high risk. So this we discussed. So no, apart from RT, any other choice you can do? Any other option you can look for this particular patient? Like ADT alone, adjuvant RT followed by ADT, or salvage RT followed by ADT. All these are options, valid options. So your first choice, only one choice for this particular case. Give one choice. Because you need to give patient one choice only. That's why you need to tell what you will do for this patient.
Salvage RT.
Salvage RT alone. No ADT.
Observation, no.
See, salvage RT means your prostatectomy is not complete. So there is a role of ADT after salvage RT.
No, but this is adjuvant because there is.
So that's what I'm saying. He said
Yeah.
salvage RT. Give me
And-
one. You decide amongst yourself
No, no.
one answer.
That would be adjuvant RT alone.
Adjuvant RT alone.
Because just one more point is that till 6 months, they allow for adjuvant radiotherapy. The gap is
Correct.
for 6
So that
months.
is, but I see it is a residual prostate. So
And
that's what.
the indication for ADT after RP is only node positive setting, which is negative here. So that's why we would give only adjuvant RT.
So only adjuvant RT.
Only adjuvant RT.
The madam, there was the study which madam was talking about, irrespective of T3B, salvage RT is non-inferior to adjuvant RT as far as toxicity profile is concerned. So you are going against the evidence.
I think the options of adjuvant RT versus salvage RT should be discussed with the patient, and pros and cons of both should be.
So patient will
discussed.
say, doctor, जो आप
But
बोलेंगे वो
still-
करूँगा
No,
मैं.
but
So
this-
what we will do?
So 50% of patients may not need any radiation if you wait for them.
So
And
that's
salvage
what.
RT versus adjuvant, this survival difference is not there.
So the data, I will go to that. There will be no observation. If there is a residual prostate, you have to give RT. If the PSA is undetectable, you have to give RT. This is a meta-analysis of observation versus adjuvant RT, where adjuvant RT is superior to observation alone. The madam, the Sharmila ma'am, the evidence she was talking about, there are 3 randomized control trial which has shown that salvage RT is non-inferior to adjuvant RT with better toxicity profile. So you have to select very few patients for adjuvant RT. You cannot give adjuvant RT just because one cut margin is positive or PSA is 0.3. But the contrary to whatever we have actually discussed is this normogram, you know, Capra normogram. So whatever evidence was suggested was for more than 6. Our patient is 9. Our patient, if you do a Capra scoring, because our PSA is high, we have high grade group of Gleason's. So our patient is Capra 9. So this Capra 9 is one indication. Capra 8 onwards is one indication where you should not wait for salvage RT. Why? Because if you wait, because these patients are going to fail 80% of the patient of this will have biochemical relapse. And you may land up, you will be surprised, in salvage RT, 20% of the people when you start salvage RT are metastatic. When you start salvage RT. So whenever you are posting patient for salvage RT and there is a rise in PSA, it is always advisable to undergo PSMA scanning, because you need to make sure that the prostatic bed is secreting PSA or there is a metastasis. So 15 to 20% of chances of metastasis in this particular to our patient. So our patient, we should offer adjuvant RT in spite of what evidences says, because they are for only 15% of population for whatever we are discussing was mentioned in that meta-analysis.
I want to make a point here that in all the 3 trials of adjuvant versus salvage, the inclusion criteria was PSA less than 0.1 or maximum up to 0.2.
Correct.
0.3 was not the inclusion.
Correct. That's what
criteria. So this patient has
0.3.
Yeah.
I deliberately put it 0.3 because, so I think we have done with the time.
And second thing is that PSMA PET won't pick up disease if PSA is less than 0.5. So we have to know that also.
So any expert comment, because we already overshoot our time.
Bhushan, you should also comment on the role of ADT in this patient.
Yeah.
Will you be there?
See, ADT after salvage RT, ADT has some evidence, but after adjuvant RT, there is no role of ADT. Like he said, it's just like you are doing RP and giving adjuvant ADT, which is not a standard of care. But salvage RT, you can give ADT. Obviously, there is no randomized evidence to it, but there is a very strong data that during salvage there is macrometastasis may happen. So you can take care by giving ADT in that particular patient.
Yeah, if this patient comes to you, on MRI, it is periprostatic spread.
Yes.
You will send it to surgical oncology?
No, no,
or-
no. We will give a neoadjuvant hormonal followed by radiation. We will
that's
never do
absolutely-
RP in this
So in
patient.
your entire case capsule, there was no neoadjuvant hormonal
No,
therapy?
because patient landed up with urologist. That's what I feel. If this patient come to me, absolutely no urology reference. It is clear-cut case of neoadjuvant hormonal treatment followed by radiation.
Okay.
So no,
that's
this confusion will
controversial
never
case.
occur. This confusion will never occur if that would have been a.
Dr. Bhushan, I will consider a hormone therapy also after ADT.
After?
After adjuvant radiotherapy, I will consider hormone therapy also for.
Yeah, there is a debate. You can always argue, but there is no evidence which shows ADT helps in as compared to only RT in such patient, because prostate is completely removed. Okay, I thank everyone for this nice discussion. Sir, any expert comment and concluding remarks?
No expert comment. I think it was very lively. Huh? That is one expert comment. Secondly, local control is important. Thirdly, MDT at the first instance and plan of action is important so that we don't have in the first instance also a good staging and a planned treatment will make our patient less morbid and probably have a longer life with less issues of poor quality of life. Thanks, Bhushan. Great job.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everyone for patience. Thank you.